And I remember his stepmom ends up coming into my room and she looks at me and says, "Hey, Bubba, I was just wondering, do you want to stay the night tonight?" I mean, I would, but your son left and he's out hanging out with his girlfriend tonight. I think he's staying over at hers, to be honest. "Oh, I mean, that's fine. I was just hoping you would stay the night." And at that moment, I didn't know if she wanted me to replace his son or she had something else in mind. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane, but I gotta say embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back in my high school, and this was actually my grade 12 year. Now, this is the year where I finally turned 18, and I was becoming an adult, and I was trying to figure out life to the fullest. But one thing I will say is that in my grade 12 year, I remember I had this one buddy that was a really close friend of mine. He was friends with me since middle school, and I will say this, his family life was never in the best situation. But I remember throughout my grade 12 year, something changed about him. For example, one of the things that changed about him is that back when we were in middle school and partway through high school, he never wanted to go home. My guess was that maybe, you know, since he had problems at home with his parents, he never wanted to go see them and interact with his own family. So a lot of the time, I would always have him come over to my place and we'd play games together and just do a bunch of different things to make him forget about going home and basically hanging out with me a lot. Over the years, obviously, my connection with him bonded and we became really good friends. But this is where things get interesting because in my grade 12 year, well, I remember things took a total 180, meaning that he doesn't mind going home, he always enjoyed seeing his parents, and well, honestly, I decided not to question it. Until one day, I remember my buddy looks at me and says, "Yo, Bubba, I'm just wondering, bro, what are you doing this weekend?" "Oh, nothing, man, just, I guess, hanging out at home playing Call of Duty." "Why, what about you?" "Oh, well, like, I have nothing planned either, and my stepmom's gonna be at my place, so, like, you wanna, like, maybe come over for dinner?" At that moment, I was in major shock, because not only did he invite me for dinner, which he has never done, but also he wanted me to meet his stepmom. At this moment, I took a pause and everything, and I looked at him and said, "Wait, you have a stepmom?" "Oh, yeah, I didn't tell you. My dad remarried recently, and like, you know, I have a stepmom now. But he's barely home and he's out on a work trip, and usually the house is just me and my stepmom, and I don't really want to be in that situation, so like, I was just curious, like, if you wanted to come over and have dinner and make it less awkward for me." I mean, I don't know, is your stepmom cool with that?" "Oh, don't worry about her, bro. Like, she knows about you, and like, she really likes you and appreciates how you took care of me throughout the years when my parents were always arguing." At that moment, I thought, you know what, why not? Like, it's a friendly invitation. What harm could come from it? But boy, was I wrong, because I remember on Friday after the bell rang, I ended up going to my car and me and my buddy got inside and drove straight to his house. I already had my stuff pre-packed back when I was at my house in the morning because I knew I was gonna have a sleepover and hang out with him for the weekend. And when me and him finally drove over to his place, he was giving me like fair warnings about his mom, about like, apparently they don't really know much about each other's history and everything. And that's when I told him, "Hey man, just don't overthink it. Trust me, it's not worth it." "Okay, I was just making sure. Like, I don't know. I don't want you to ask random questions that I don't know the answers to. You know what I mean? I don't want to make it seem like we don't really know each other, even though we don't." "Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Like I said, I won't overthink it and ask too many questions." I remember when me and him finally ended up parking in his front driveway, we automatically saw his stepmom come out, and she was like really excited to meet me. I remember she ended up running up to me and hugging me saying, "Oh my goodness, you must be his friend that he keeps talking about. Hi, I'm his mom, and it's really nice to meet you." At that moment, I remember my buddy ends up walking right past her, kind of angrily, and he ends up saying under his breath, "You mean stepmom?" And he ends up walking straight through the front door. At that moment, I introduced myself, and I decided to be a nice person and basically act normal. And she appreciated it, obviously, but when things got inside, things were really awkward. Because I remember when me and my buddy ended up going into his bedroom, we ended up sitting down playing video games, but then things got really interesting. Because I remember he looks over at me and says, "Yo, Bubba, you talk to a lot of girls, right?" Yeah, I guess. Why?" "Well, like, there's this girl I'm seeing, and like, honestly, man, like, things are getting really awkward between me and her. Like, we just keep arguing, and like, I don't know, man, it's over dumb stuff." And I ended up giving him basic advice where I told him, honestly, man, girls have a lot of different emotions, and when it comes to an argument, just kind of tell them what makes them happy. At the end of the day, if you really care about this girl and the arguments are really just dumb, just let her hear what she wants to hear. Anything to make the girl happy is just a win-win scenario. At that moment, I remember right as I say that, his stepmom ends up walking into the room, and she looks at me and says, "Oh, sorry, did I interrupt something?" "No, you're not. What do you want?" "Oh, I just want to say dinner was ready." "Okay, Bubba, let's go downstairs for dinner." I remember he ended up standing up and walked right past her right away. As for me, I stood up and walked with the stepmom, and she ended up looking at me and smiling at me really weirdly. I didn't know why, nor did I ask questions, because like I told my friend earlier, I wasn't going to ask anything weird. And when we went and sat down for dinner, I remember it was the most silent dinner I've ever had. I don't know why, but sitting there staring at each other and eating is never something I enjoy doing. And if you guys have ever been in that kind of situation, comment down below. But as things were getting more awkward by the minute, I remember I ended up looking at my buddy and I told him, yo, so I was wondering after dinner, do you want to like go upstairs and maybe hit some trick shots? There's a temper shot I want to try to keep hitting if you're down. Huh? Oh yeah, we definitely can, Bubba. Sounds good to me. And right at that moment, his stepmom was about to say something, but then my buddy's phone ended up ringing. When his phone was ringing, I remember his stepmom ends up looking at him and says, who's calling you at this time? And my buddy ends up grabbing his phone right away off the table and he ends up saying, I gotta go upstairs. I'll talk to you guys after. He ends up going upstairs on the phone and one thing led to another. His stepmom ends up looking at me, asking me all these questions about, you know, how his life was like before and like, was he ever happy? And asking me all these really sad questions that honestly, I don't know why you would ask me when you can ask your own stepson. I remember even got to a point where I even looked at her and said, honestly, like these sound like questions you need to ask him. Like, I don't think it's my place to say anything. She ends up respecting that and she ends up bringing up the conversation I had with him about the girl that he was seeing. At that moment, I realized she was eavesdropping on me and him and I felt really weird about that. And obviously I didn't want to say anything because once again, it wasn't my place to say anything. And finally, I decided to get up and say, you know what? I'm gonna go upstairs and see what he's doing. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea, is what she says. And I went upstairs and when I went up there, I realized he was packing his backpack full of clothes and he looks at me saying, yo, Bubba, I hate to cut this short, bro, but I gotta go see my girl. Wait, what? You're gonna go see her? Yeah, don't worry, man. You can just go home. It's all chill. She's picking me up anyway. No, that's cool and all. I get that, but like, I thought we were gonna hang out this weekend. Yeah, bro, but like you said, bro, like, I gotta make my girl happy. You know what I mean? At that moment, I realized that he was taking the advice I gave him and there's no way I was gonna make him not go. Like, obviously it's his girl. Like, let him go see his girl. Does it really matter? And that's when he ended up grabbing his backpack and leaving and going straight out the front door. At that moment, I ended up packing my stuff as well because I wasn't gonna stay there by myself without my buddy there. But right as I was packing my bag in his bedroom, his stepmom ends up coming to the door. She looks at me and says, oh, Bubba, do you know where he went? He went to go to see someone. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but I don't think he's coming back tonight. Oh, okay, well, do you know if he's safe? Oh, don't worry, he's totally safe. You don't have to overthink about that. Okay, well, like, are you leaving? I mean, I was planning to. Well, I mean, like, do you have to go? Because, like, to be honest, like, I wouldn't mind if you stayed here for the night. At that moment, I froze. I didn't know what to say. Like, why would you tell me to stay, but my buddy's not even here? And that's when I realized she ended up walking up close to me and she said to me, honestly, like, being a stepmom is so hard and like his father's never home and things are really weird now. And one thing led to another. She ended up getting really close to me and well, that's when I can say we ended up doing the devil's tango in his bedroom. Yeah, I know. Kind of insane. Doing it in your own friend's bedroom with his own stepmom. Kind of a big shocker. Doing the devil's tango with her was not something I expected. But then things got really, really weird because I remember that night I ended up passing out beside her on my buddy's bed. And the next morning when my buddy got home, he ends up walking through his bedroom door, looking at me and his mom on his bed with absolutely nothing on and starts yelling, Bubba, did you just do the devil's tango with my mom? Oh, what? I didn't know you were home. Okay, bro, I'm gonna be honest, bro. Like, it's your stepmom, right? And yeah, let's just say me and him stopped being friends after that. But one thing I will say was that his stepmom was hot. So was I really losing there? But other than that, my advice would be fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.